Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're embarking on a bit of a journey, looking into inner peace, mental clarity, that sort of thing. Our source material is Daily Astrological Reflections for Inner Peace. It's from Tarot by High C, and we're focusing on the entry for June 21st, 2025. And our mission really is to see what wisdom we can pull from these reflections. How to find stability, get that mental clarity, and really understand what it means to choose peace. Oh, and just quickly, if you want to know more about High C's work, maybe their one-on-one readings, you can find that at tarotbyhick.net.
Right. And what's really interesting, I think, is how the general astrology for that day kind of sets the stage. It lays this groundwork before we even get to the TarotScope part. We're told June 31st is really centered on stability, comfort, self-care. There's this nudge to move forward, sure, but not by straining ourselves. Emotions are meant to be stabilizing, and there's a focus on keeping things simple.
Yeah, I can see that. A day for simple pleasures, taking care of yourself. Makes sense. It even mentions enjoying, sensual pleasures, connecting with people we care about, appreciating the beauty around us. There's also this little note about maybe a late burst of energy, so maybe not a totally quiet evening, but the main vibe is ease, right? But what does that actually mean for our minds? Prioritizing simplicity, indulging in comfort. Is it just about, passively accepting calm? Or is there more to it?
That's a really good question, because this ease, it's not really about being passive. It's more about creating mental space. When we consciously choose stability, choose simplicity, we sort of clear the mental clutter. And that prepares us for the deeper stuff that the TarotScope then brings in,
Yeah.
which for today features the Knight of Clouds reversed.
Ah, the TarotScope, right, the daily reading through the tarot lens.
Exactly. And the message for the Knight of Clouds reversed here is pretty direct. Disarm the mind, release the inner war.
Disarm the mind. Okay, that hits home. The Knight of Clouds, often the Knight of Swords and other decks, usually represent sharp intellect, yes, but also that tendency to overthink, maybe be a bit combative, even aggressive sometimes. So reversed. It suggests that energy is turned inward, maybe misdirected, leading to that inner conflict, getting stuck in your head. Analysis paralysis.
Absolutely.
So disarm the mind feels like a direct instruction then. Counteract that combative energy, move from tension towards, detachment, inner clarity.
Precisely. It's an invitation to practice mental stillness today.
Like actually noticing the gaps between thoughts, recognizing when we're putting up our mental armor when maybe we don't need to.
Yes, exactly. And that raises the question, what does that armoring up even look like day to day? The source talks about it as, that constant need to defend your point of view, to argue mentally with others, or even just with yourself, which is probably more common, right?
Oh, definitely. Replaying conversations, arguments.
Yeah. It's about untangling ourselves from those old mental habits, those biases, the internal monologue where you're always right, keeping score, expecting people to act a certain way. Think how much energy just vanishes replaying old arguments no one else is even thinking about anymore.
Wow, yeah. It sounds incredibly freeing, the thought of softening those reactive parts of ourselves. But it's tough, isn't it? Because those sharp edges often feel like they're protecting us. How do you start trusting that softness?
Well, the source suggests that, not every disagreement actually needs a winner. Not every uncomfortable feeling needs a full-blown mental battle plan. It's about consciously choosing a different kind of strength, one that's rooted in, gentleness.
So sometimes the bravest thing is just walking away from the internal fight. Choosing peace over proving you're right. That sounds really active, not passive at all.
That's the crux of it. It is an active choice. The wisdom is in choosing not to engage, especially in those battles happening only inside your own head. It encourages us to disarm before we even start, to notice the impulse to judge or get defensive or try to control things.
See the impulse, but not necessarily follow it.
Exactly. Witness it, but don't act on it. And this idea, this active disengagement, it's really brought to life in the story of the day section.
Yes, the story. This is where it gets vivid. The warrior who laid down his sword. It tells us about Cael, this warrior whose armor wasn't metal, but sharp words. His helmet was made of old judgments, his sword, righteous fury.
Sounds familiar.
Right. He fought these battles no one else could even see. Internal wars of belief, pride, fighting shadows he created himself.
And that perfectly captures the Knight of Clouds reversed energy, doesn't it? Cael, despite being outwardly undefeated, felt this constant crushing weight on his spirit, which really shows how insidious that internal conflict can be, draining us completely, even when there's no obvious external enemy.
Then this cloaked figure shows up, sitting by a calm pool, Surrounded by crystals, amethyst, lepidolite, selenite. Very serene.
Calming energy.
And the figure just asks Cael quietly, "Why do you war so endlessly?" And Cael's answer. It's so relatable, that defense mechanism. Because if I don't, I'll be defeated. If I lower my guard, I'll be undone.
And the figure's response is just, wow, pivotal.
Yeah.
Then be undone.
It directly challenges his biggest fear, doesn't it? Offering this terrifying but also kind of liberating alternative.
Yeah.
Letting go of that desperate need for control, that compulsion to constantly defend.
And Cael actually does it. He starts taking off the metaphorical armor, the helmet of assumptions, the chest plate of stubborn pride, the gauntlets of always needing to be certain. And each piece falling away wasn't like defeat, it sounded like a chime. Liberation. And then his sword made of old wounds, strong opinions, finally drops. He looks in the pool.
And sees himself. Not the warrior defined by fighting, but a soul. Uncluttered, serene, unarmored.
It's such a powerful image of what disarming the mind can lead to. It really is. And then the figure delivers that key line, the one that sort of reframes everything about strength. Peace is not the absence of strength, but the refusal to waste it on battles unworthy of your spirit.
That is powerful. Strength and discernment, not just combat, but still that feeling. Laying down the sword can feel like weakness, can't it? Vulnerability. How do we really get that it's strength?
Well, the story continues a little. Cael kneels, breathes deeply, his mind calmed, perhaps by the amethyst's energy the text mentions. The storm clouds that were always metaphorically above him part, revealing this clear open sky.
Yeah, a moment of clarity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And from then on, he still carries his sword, but it stays sheathed. Not out of fear, the story says, but out of wisdom.
So the world wasn't really about the fight itself.
It seems it was more about knowing when to fight, or rather, when not to, when to lay it down.
Okay, that makes more sense.
And that profound insight. Peace is not the absence of strength, but the refusal to waste it on battles unworthy of your spirit. It ties everything together so well. It's not just a nice phrase. It genuinely redefines strength, doesn't it?
It really does.
Suggesting true power isn't in winning every single argument, but in strategically choosing where you put your mental and emotional energy, your finite resources.
So what looks like surrender is actually, well, strategic self-preservation.
Yes. A powerful act. And it echoes the Night of Clouds reversed perfectly, and that general advice for the day. Find stability, find simplicity by letting go of the unnecessary fights.
So bringing this back to you listening, what we've seen today digging into these sources is that letting go of that inner conflict, it isn't weakness at all. It seems it's actually a really powerful way to preserve yourself, find clarity, and reclaim energy from those invisible battles that just drain you.
Absolutely. And maybe a final thought to mull over. If laying down your sword, as the story puts it, reveals a soul that's uncluttered by conflict, what simple act of mental disarmament, however small, could start to unburden your spirit today?